Today's video, we're going to talk about why are my PPC sales down? And here's all the reasons that you need and want to check why your sales are down so you don't make the mistake that most people make, which is making changes when there's no real problem to your account and then affecting your sales results even more in the process. Okay, there are many different reasons why your sales are down. It could be near holidays, political stuff that's going on, could be somebody made a change in your account you're not aware of. You changed to something with your landing page recently, you're bidding, on and on. I'm going to go through the main reasons why your sales would actually be down, and then when and where you need to fix it right away, and when you do not need to do anything at all, because the cure is actually doing nothing, okay? I made this video because there are so many people at our agency that don't understand the ebbs and the flows of Google Ads and how it works and why it works the way that it does. So I'm going to go through what all these common reasons, what pushes your sales down in your Google Ads account so you actually, on a definitive basis, know when you need to act and when you don't. And then when you need to act, how you can react and act as quickly as possible to get your sales back on track. With that said, I'll go through what these are. I'll give you some case studies of different examples of different companies that made these mistakes. Their sales were down. They did not know what to do, started making changes, really screwed up the results. So you basically can understand what's at stake if you're going to go ahead and just randomly react when your sales are down. Bottom line, you're never going to get to where you want to go with your Google Ads account until you understand when sales are down for something that you can control and when it's something that you cannot control with your account. Because every change you make in your Google Ads account causes negative volatility in your results. So therefore, every change needs to be thought well through. Otherwise, you're going to be in a perpetual negative downward spiral in terms of your results because you're making changes too quickly in your ad account. So I'll go through what all those are and more. Before I do though, if you not know who I am Corey Zyman, owner of Guaranteed PPC, an online advertising agency that specializes in guaranteeing results for their clients. That is, we do not charge our clients management fees until we get them a certain minimum lift in the profitability upfront in excess of our management fee. We are the only agency out there that does anything like this, which should tell you something about the quality of the information that you're receiving on today's video. So with that said, most people want their sales to be rock freaking solid, stable, so they can easily pay for all their monthly overhead. And I get why. As you're building up your company, you have more overhead than personal savings to cover it at a certain point. And if your sales go down even 30% one particular month, you may not have the money to cover all your overhead. But it does not mean the answer is making changes to your account to dig yourself out of that hole all the time. In some cases, you can dig yourself out of the hole, but many times you can't, because if you go ahead and you agree to bid higher in your account, for instance, your ROI will go down and it'll be a wash per se. As it comes to, quote unquote, making changes, you really got to think about, do I really want to make this change or not? Because there's no way to fix this actually in reality. Ultimately, as your business gets bigger, you need your sales to be more stable. I get it, but there's better ways to go about doing it. Yearly, if you're going to be smart about this, and we do this with all of our clients now because of how valuable it is, but you need to chart out where your sales are going to be every month going into the whole next 12 months on a rolling basis to know what to expect up front going into things, okay? So that means literally each year mapping out what your budget should be for ads in January, February, March, April, May, and so on and so forth, and then do the same thing with the sales or ROI so you know what to expect. Why? Right out the gate here, I'm going to say that sales for most firms is going to be highly seasonal. You're going to have certain months where it's good, certain months where it's not. If you're an e-commerce business, right after Christmas, your sales are going to be shit. Whereas right before it, they're going to be amazing. If you're selling to businesses, March, April, May is going to be great. In June, July, August, it's going to be freaking terrible. Every year, that's the way that it is. Home services, it's going to be great March, April, May. Less so June, July, August, September. And then as you go into November, December, January, garbage. So you got to know these ebbs and flows in advance, and it's hard to do when you're just starting out, but you have no excuse why you should not do this after at least 1 year running your ads for your business. And even then, you should be able to chart out how your sales normally flow, but that in itself is dangerous because returning business flows in differently than new business that you're going to get through running an ad campaign, unless you're doing remarketing here, and that's a whole different story. So you got to know that, so that specifically for two reasons. A, as you go down the line and you're trying to scale your ad account, you know when there's an actual genuine problem. So you know when not to make any changes, which will screw your account up even more if you do it. But also so you know when to make changes, so that as you go into the year, you can look at, okay, my June this year wasn't nearly as good as what we thought. You compare this looking at your previous last 3 Junes and the normal progression of what you should have got year over year in terms of an increase. And then in July, you could actually decide to do something about it, or at least go check into the things that I'm mentioning here that you should check into. So with that said, you also, to do your business right, and I see people that don't want to do this, and they're probably going to have an aneurysm at some point, but this requires you to save your money and keep a 1-year float in your bank account at all times to deal with the fluctuation in sales throughout the year, because there's going to be months during the year that you may not make any money at all or lose money. Certainly lose. There's quite a few of our clients, I will admit, that lose money certain months. But there's other months where they make a killing. And I would say 50% of our clients, they make 75% of their profit in like 2 to 3 months of the year during their best season, where conversions come freely, they come cheaply, and so forth. So the only way to fix this is not to, during the good times, you go out and you get a Corvette payment stupidly, and instead of saving the money and socking it away, knowing that in December, when your sales are going to be garbage, you've got money to cover your losses during those months. Because I can tell you right up front, you do not want to pause your ads when you're talking about running ads on these platforms, because you're going to lose credibility with the platforms. And when you turn the ads back on during the so-called busy months, it's not going to work nearly as well, or at least will take a month or 2 to get back on track, and then you've lost your busy season. So you can't basically do that. You can spend less during certain times of the year. You absolutely can do that without affecting your results and your momentum during the busy months, but you can't just shut off your ads, so to say. Not only that, but if you actually just shut off your ads, let's say you're a roofer, you shut off your ads in December, January, February, not only is it going to not perform nearly as well during your best months, March and April, but a lot of the people who are going to buy March and April are doing their research December, January, February. That's who's searching. These people are searching to do research in order to buy. They're not looking at it for freaking fun. So you're going to lose a bunch of potential customers in March and April, because people that bought in March and April were deciding in December, February, March. So you got to save up your chips. And then with that, when you plan out your budget for the next year, it also helps you make way more money overall, because you can decide which months are really good and you just want to pour on a freaking metric ton of money on your ad accounts, and certain months where you want to back off of it. So I do it with our clients because it'll make the most money, which allows us to have them retain us and be happier with our firm. And we'll just figure out, okay, you're going to give us $500,000 to spend in ads this year. Okay, I want to spend this much in January, this much in February, this much in March, because I know the months where it's the best is these 2 months, and we want to do as much as we can in these 2 months, because when you look at the year as a whole, we're going to make the most when we go about things that way. But as it pertains to this video, you want to plan out this in advance so you know when the sales being down is normal and when it's not normal. Now, getting into the reason why your sales are traditionally slow, okay? Some of these things being in your control, some of them are not. But I'm going to go through what these are, these main ones. Usually if your sales are down, it's going to be one of these 6 things. Tracking. Okay, if your tracking breaks and you were using smart bidding, your results are going to be down, because the algorithm is going to be like, whoa, wait. Whatever I thought I knew, I don't know anymore. And so the very first thing you should check when your sales results are down is your tracking. Is your tracking working? And in order to know that, you could send some test conversions through. But even then, it's still not foolproof. The best bet is to have backup conversion sources. Meaning if you're doing Facebook ads, you have backup conversion tracking in Google Analytics that you can then compare to your Facebook tracking, which will never track equally conversion to conversion, but it'll at least give you a consistent ratio of how it tracks. So you could find that Facebook normally tracks twice as high or hot as Google Analytics for our Facebook traffic there. And I know if I want to check my tracking is broken, I'd see if that 2-to-1 ratio holds true in the last, let's say 7 days, because our sales have been down. In Google Ads, it means, it's easier. You could just, track whatever you're tracking in Google Ads with a backup goal through Google Analytics, import it into your Google Ads account, and have a Google Ads purchase tracking goal or other goal, whatever you're tracking there. And you could see if the ratio of your primary to your backup goal is consistent as to what it was historically to know if your conversion tracking is working. The reason why you do this is because tracking sometimes only intermittently works. So you can have only half your conversions going through, and the only way to truly know that or not is to have this backup goal system going that we use at our firm, and you should be using as well. And for that matter, if you have the backup goal system going and your sales are down, you could tell within 5 minutes whether your tracking is likely broken or not, looking at the ratio of the backup to the primary goal and how it's sitting right now. So if you're using smart bidding, that would be the main reason why your sales are down. If your tracking is broken, you need to get that fixed. The sooner you can get it fixed, the less money you're going to lose. And therefore, which is why you want to have all your tracking set up very robustly like this, like I just described ahead of time, so the time it takes to get back on track is as little as possible. Too many changes. So a lot of times you can just make too many changes, which could mean a lot of small changes or one really big change, and it's going to cause your campaigns to go back into learning mode and you're screwed. And then for that matter, maybe somebody else in your account that have access to your account is making changes. You don't know how many times I've seen people make that mistake, which you could check your change history and see if that's happening. But in either case, that can be what is causing your sales to go down. A lot of times, the most common one that comes up recently is I see companies, they have a Google rep reach out and the Google rep talks them into some changes. They thought it was some innocent changes, and why would Google tell me something that would harm me? They do it. Their sales are going down, and I mean down to the point where they're not getting any more sales at all. I have to end up reversing it all. And I didn't even know they did it, so their sales are down before I realized they did it. So key thing being there, don't listen to Google ad reps anymore, because their job is to sell you on spending more on ad spend. That's what they're there for. I don't care what you say. I know people internally that have worked there say they get comped on how much you spend, and they need to get you to spend in a short period of time. And the easiest way to do that is just to do the same cookie cutter. So with that said, you want to check your change history, make sure there's not too many changes. If there are, the only cure is waiting it out. Unfortunately, as much as that might suck to hear, that's the true best advice, because if you make more changes, it's going to screw stuff up even more. And even if the change you made wasn't the best change, a lot of cases it's better just to ride that change out than to undo it, because it's going to cause even more negative volatility in your account. Seasonal changes. So we talked about this in terms of projecting out your sales 12 months in advance, but truly, every year, most businesses are going to have seasonal fluctuations in their sales based upon conversions being less or more easy to get during certain times of the year because of how consumer purchase habits change. Okay? So with that said, you don't really have a choice. You have to live through these times of the year where sales are going to suck and where it's going to be really, really good. And you just got to do what I mentioned. You got to save your money when the months are good, so that the months that aren't so good, you can keep your overheads covered. And that's just the way that it is. Political events. So I'd say about twice a year, there are political events that change our clients' sales, and it's across the board. Just to let you know, I have about 50 different ad accounts that I'm responsible for doing the strategy on and getting the results on at our firm. We have a bunch of other people that help execute things, but I'm just in charge of strategy and working with the client and letting them know our strategy. And with that said, when something comes up like a big wildfire or shooting that's significant, or the election comes up, what you'll see across the board on most of our client accounts is the sales are affected. At least if it's in a market like you either need it right or you don't need it right away. Like a towing company, it doesn't affect the sales. That is rock solid regardless. But even if you're talking about like a plumbing company, your sales can easily be down some during that time of the year. And the more discretionary it is, and the more you can delay your purchase, the more your sales are going to be affected by the political stuff that's going on. Sometimes you'll get by with none of that during the year. Sometimes it's like 3 times of the year, 3 different times of the year, it screws up our sales. And clients don't like to hear that that's the reason why their sales are down, because to them it sounds ludicrous. It's like, of course people have to buy paint still. Why are they going to not buy paint? Because the election is going on right now. I've been doing this a long, long time, decades. I've seen this myself. There's no getting around this. Now, not to say every political thing causes your sales to go down. No. The bigger the event, the more your sales are going to go down. The upside is once the thing is over, usually your sales recover and then some. But, the point of this video is to let you know when you should need to panic and act, and to have some comfort in knowing that why your sales are down and that they're going to come back, and therefore you don't have to worry and do anything. And this is a part of knowing that and having a checklist. Okay, I check this. Oh, this is probably it, and so forth. Sales process has changed. You don't know how many clients I work with, even companies doing 5, 10 million a year, where they don't have their closing rates tracked. Ultimately, you need to be tracking, if you're doing lead generation, that is, and even if you're e-commerce, you need to, if you're taking phone orders, you need to track how many phone calls turn into sales. But any lead generation account, for sure, you need to track how many leads turn into, or how many clicks turn into leads, how many leads that turn into opportunities. That is, it was a qualified lead, how many opportunities turn into closed sales. Okay? Why? Because most people are apt to blame their PPC for their sales going down when really there was a fluctuation in their sales process. And I know people don't like looking at their sales process because Mary answers the phone and I like Mary, and Mary doesn't really listen to what I have to say anyway, and she knows it, and she knows I can't fire her because then I have to pay her unemployment and then find another And so they come at me because it's easy to bark at me because I'm not an employee and they don't have to look at me every day. The reality is, when I say, okay, what's our opportunity closing rates recently? And the first place you should be looking is at your opportunity close rates, not at your PPC. Now, for that matter, your best bet is to actually, inside your ad accounts, track how much and have your campaigns optimized for qualified leads, not just any lead in general, meaning just any phone call, any form fill in general, so that the campaigns are never going to go off course and get you a bunch of crappy quality leads all of a sudden. But if you're just optimizing for leads, that certainly can happen. But you should look at your closing rates on your leads first. Even when you know that the closing rate's the same as it always was, ultimately you should be you can look at the call recordings and then see if the call recordings score the calls in terms of the quality of the call, and look at that level before adjusting anything on your PPC campaigns. That's how you really go about diagnosing things. So you start at the sales side and then you work your way back. Yes, your ads certainly could be at fault, but the last thing you want to do is change your ads, because that causes negative volatility in your results. So that's always last, so to say. So anyway, that is something to consider. And with the sales process, by the way, there's all kinds of stuff that goes wrong. You could have the problem with the phone systems. It's not connecting. Mary, who answers the phone because of the surgeon calls, can't answer the phone every single time now because it's the busy season. The form fills, they're not getting answered soon enough. People aren't following up the form leads like they're supposed to. They're just following up once and then they give up right away like they're a baby. This stuff happens all the time. You got to be on your sales people and monitoring your closing rates all the time, just like you monitor your sales coming in. Because this stuff fluctuates in and itself, that's the way that it is. Even though people don't like to focus on it because it's hard to control that with shitty employees that they can only afford because they're only such and such big company and whatever. For me though, if you're doing at least $5 million a year and you don't have a high-powered salesperson answering the phone versus some random secretary that's doing whatever God knows what, you're kicking your own ass, basically, because they're going to double your closing rate from what you got already. And a lot of businesses, you're not going to make it work with just some secretary answering the phone. So with that said, 6, site changed, landing page changed. So a lot of the times I see clients updating their website and they just don't think this could affect their sales at all. You got to be in position when you update your website, that is, you redesign your website, to know what the conversion rate is after the change. Okay? And a lot of guys, they hold on to a site too long that's not converting as well as the old site. And I get it. You've invested 20 grand into a website. You damn well don't want to go backwards after going through hell getting it together. But at the end of the day, the consumer don't care. Either the consumer likes your site and they're going to convert, or they're not. And what's on this site, how it's laid out, the color scheme, all this stuff all affects your conversion rates. And same thing with the landing pages. You can't just switch to a different landing page and say, well, there's a landing page there. How bad could it be? Because at the end of the day, creating a landing page is an art. I could take many times. We've had landing pages that a client's put together that were crap, that had 3, 4, 5% conversion rates, that we pumped up to 20%. Just because we know how to make a damn landing page. And the average designer doesn't know how to make a landing page design. There's specialists that just make landing pages, and they literally are like printing like gold bars for you, because 5 times as many sales or leads from the same exact traffic source just because they know how to make a landing page. Of course they're going to cost a lot. They're not going to charge you $500 for a landing page and you're going to get by with that, for that matter, because they know what their skills are worth. And there's more people that need a higher conversion rate than those designers who really know what they're doing out there to do the work. Change your landing page, maybe it doesn't convert as well. Maybe you change your landing page, you put it on a different URL. That could send the campaigns back into learning mode, and that could be your issue. You could actually have recoded your landing page. Like, let's say a past agency had your landing page, they gave you the code, you put it on your site, but the code changed because for whatever reason, or they gave you copied the design and you put it on your website, you put new HTML code to render that page on your site. The page looks identical, but the coding is different. That will send your campaigns back into learning mode. I know because I've seen it many times. Ultimately, the hosting has changed. Have you changed hosting providers? Then your website now loads a little bit slower, a second and a half slower. Therefore, your sales are affected already, which that little thing can have certainly affected depending on your situation. So any change with your website, your landing pages at all, it can affect your sales, affect them negatively for a good 90 days after it happens, and potentially forever if you made the mistake of hiring a bonehead to make your new website or your new landing pages that did not know how to make a website that converts, which is a whole different skill than knowing how to make a website by itself. And same thing with your landing pages. That's another thing to take into consideration here. With all that said, there's a lot of little tips and tricks that I just went through that you're probably saying, I didn't know that, I didn't know that, I didn't know that. If you are serious about becoming a multi-millionaire, being able to run ads for your business successfully to become that, you want to subscribe to this channel because I have all that information that you need to be able to do this for yourself accurately on this channel. Because it comes from somebody who spent a couple decades running ads for my businesses, hundreds of other businesses out there. I understand this stuff and I give you the actual firsthand knowledge about what works and what doesn't work for free on this channel. Most channels out there, you got the person, they're regurgitating other people's information because they don't really run any ads. They're trying to sell AdSense, sell courses. They're trying to run an agency, but they're not actually doing the work. And I know it because I look for information myself, and there's 1% of the information out there is actually good because people are actively working on the stuff. And it's a full-time job running a YouTube channel, so they don't do the work, they just talk about it. I spend my weekends talking about what works, and I spend my 40-hour day job just doing the work. And I have to work 70 hours a week to make it happen, but that's what I do. And therefore, the information is valuable. Though, with all that said, if you like the channel, you should check out my blog as well at guaranteedppc.com/blog. The blog has all this, basically the strategies we're using to guarantee results for our clients with the step-by-step instructions, with the screenshots, everything you would need to use them. Most people who like the channel like the blog as well, so you should check that out as well. In addition to all that, if you have any questions about anything I'm covering here today, about your sales being down, you want to get a read on your unique situation, you can always leave me a comment below. I get back to every single person who leaves me a question or comment on this channel, usually within 24 hours time. Or you can actually reach out to me at my site at guaranteedppc.com and you can hire me for a coaching session. I'll go over every little detail on your business and let you know, should you do nothing? Should you act? What's wrong? Regardless if you're an agency owner or just a regular business, I can help you out on one of those calls. And every person who's been getting the coaching calls from me since I started doing them recently, in addition to our primary ad agency stuff, they're coming back for more coaching calls at some point in time, literally speaking. Ultimately, the best offense is a good defense. Knowing what your sales should be in advance of you going into each month of your company, setting up good tracking systems with backup tracking, and having a way to test your tracking every few days time span or every week or every month to make sure your tracking is always working and having a plan in place that if it does break, what you need to do right away, an SOP, if you will. Ultimately, not letting people in your ad account to make changes that you wouldn't want to make changes, not talking to Google reps, not letting them talk you into changes. A lot of the stuff I covered here today is all stuff that you can easily just do that will prevent an issue from happening in general, which is why I covered most of what I did. But it's also legitimately the stuff that comes up the most, which is why I covered it. With all that said, if you want somebody that truly knows every little last thing about what to do so you don't run into mistakes and cause your account, your sales to suffer because of a wrong move, ultimately, or can tell you if your sales are down for a reason, you hire the best. You can reach out to us at guaranteedppc.com and we can tell you what we can do for your account in terms of raising your sales and profits, and you would have that team working for you directly. We guarantee your results. You're going to get such a minimum lift in your profitability from your ads up front before we take a management fee on top of it. So if you're interested in that, you can also reach out to us at our firm and I'll be happy to talk to you about the opportunity of working together. We also sell ad templates. We realized a few years ago that a lot of people just want the winning ads, landing pages, campaign templates that work for their niche market if we worked in their niche market before. And we can sell those to you and then tell you the results you're going to get with it up front. We've worked in over 100 different niche markets in the last decade plus of running this firm, so the chances are quite high. We've already got you the results that you're looking for in your niche market. So ultimately, you stand to gain a lot just by using that template. And many times we've spent millions of dollars to figure out what the best ad, best landing page is in a niche market, and you can just get it for a one-time small fee for yourself to use it for yourself. So if you're interested in that, you can also reach out to me at my firm as well. But with that said, hopefully that made a lot of sense why your sales are down, what to do when it happens, when certainly most of the time you're going to do nothing when something happens, when the sales are down. And other times you need to certainly act, and this will differentiate one from the other. Hopefully this made a lot of sense for you, and I'll see you on the next one.
Remember when I said Google Ads account was important during this video? Well, this video here tells you how to do it.